The doorbell rang like a sudden crack in the calm morning air, jolting Ethan Carver from the quiet rhythm of his Saturday. He had spent the last few minutes wiping the kitchen counter and straightening the living room, a ritual that had grown into a meditative routine since he became a single dad. The house smelled faintly of fresh coffee and pancakes, a small comfort he had built for his 7-year-old daughter, Sophie, who was upstairs, probably humming to herself as she drew on her sketch pad. Ethan took a deep breath and wiped his hands on his jeans. Today was different. Today he wasn't just a dad, a project manager, or the man who always made sure Sophie's socks matched. Today he was someone else, someone brave enough to go on a blind date. He had met Claire through a mutual friend, and while he had exchanged a few nervous texts with her over the last week, nothing could have prepared him for the flutter of anticipation now coursing through him. He opened the door and froze. A soft, melodic whisper brushed past his ears, the sound so gentle yet precise that it sent an unexpected shiver down his spine. "Ethan?" Ethan's heart lurched. He couldn't see her yet, couldn't process the scene before him, but there was something in the tone, calm, confident and oddly familiar, that rooted him to the spot. Before we continue, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the magic of unexpected connections, please take a moment to like, comment, share and subscribe to our channel, Stories of Kindness. Finally stepping out of his momentary paralysis, Ethan cleared his throat. "Yes, that's me." His voice sounded foreign even to his own ears, betraying the nervous excitement that his mind refused to quiet. "Hello, Ethan," Claire whispered again, a soft smile in her voice. "I hope I'm not too early." He took a cautious step forward, and the world seemed to blur, focusing entirely on the sound of her presence. There was a quiet elegance in the way she moved, a careful, deliberate grace that suggested confidence, yet there was no hesitation in her voice that hinted at the nerves she may have felt. Something in her whisper made him realize he wasn't the only one stepping into unfamiliar territory. Claire had been blind since birth. This was something Ethan had learned from the brief messages they exchanged, a fact he respected but had honestly forgotten in the swirl of predate anxiety. Meeting someone in person who lived in a world illuminated entirely by sound, touch and scent was an entirely new experience. "Hi, welcome," he finally managed, extending a hand he hoped was steady. Claire's hand rested lightly on his, firm yet gentle. "Thank you for inviting me," she said. "Your home smells wonderful." A flush rose to Ethan's cheeks. Compliments from strangers weren't new to him, but something about the way she spoke made him feel seen even without sight. He felt a warmth spread through his chest that had little to do with the morning sun streaming through the windows. They settled at the small kitchen table, Sophie peeking down the stairs, curious about the new guest. Ethan introduced them briefly, and Claire's laugh, soft, lilting, unhurried, filled the room, instantly dissolving the awkward tension. Sophie, fascinated by her, offered a drawing she had been working on, and Claire thanked her warmly, describing in vivid detail the colors, shapes and textures she imagined in the sketch. As breakfast began, Ethan found himself relaxing for the first time in months. He talked about Sophie, his work, and the quiet rhythm of his life, while Claire shared stories of her childhood, her travels, and the small victories and challenges of navigating the world without sight. There was a natural ebb and flow to the conversation, a gentle rhythm that reminded Ethan how rare it was to connect with someone who didn't judge the quiet cracks in his life. But as the morning stretched on, the quiet tension returned, not from awkwardness, but from the weight of his emotions. Ethan had not dated in years. After his divorce, the world had narrowed to Sophie, his work, and the safe confines of routines that didn't involve emotional risks. Claire's presence reminded him how much he had missed. Laughter shared without hesitation, small touches that weren't transactional, and the thrill of new connections. At one point, Claire reached out, resting her hand over his. The gesture was simple, yet electrifying. "Ethan, may I ask something personal?" she whispered. He nodded, suddenly self-conscious. "I can't see you," she said softly, "but I hear you. I hear the way your voice changes when you talk about your daughter, the way it softens when you laugh. I hear the kindness you hide behind nerves, and I wanted to ask if you're ready to let someone in again, The question hung in the air, heavy and impossible to ignore. Ethan swallowed hard. He hadn't realized how much he feared vulnerability until that exact moment, until her words laid it bare with the gentleness of someone who could sense the invisible layers of his heart. I don't know, he admitted, his voice almost breaking. I'm scared, I guess. Scared of getting hurt. Scared of messing things up. But talking to you, it feels different. Claire smiled in her voice, a warmth that wrapped around him like a hug. It's okay to be scared. I'm scared too, but maybe we don't have to be afraid together. Sophie, having listened quietly, tugged at her father's sleeve. Dad, she's nice, right? Can she stay for a while? Ethan chuckled, the tension in his shoulders melting. Yes, Sophie, she's very nice. The morning continued with laughter, pancake flipping competitions and shared stories. Ethan realized that he hadn't smiled like this in months, not truly, not freely. Each word, each gentle whisper, drew him closer to something he had almost forgotten existed: hope. Later, as Claire prepared to leave, Ethan walked her to the door, the atmosphere between them charged with unspoken promises. I had a wonderful morning, he said honestly. So did I, she replied, her hand brushing lightly against his. I can't wait to see you again, Ethan, and Sophie too. Standing there, watching her move with quiet confidence, Ethan felt a sense of peace and excitement coexisting for the first time in years. This wasn't just a date. It was the first step toward reclaiming a part of himself he thought was gone forever. As the door closed behind her, Ethan leaned against it, a sigh escaping him. The quiet hum of his house no longer felt empty, it was alive with possibility. He looked upstairs at Sophie, who was already sketching again, and realized something vital. Love, in all its forms, had a way of finding you when you least expected it. Days turned into weeks, and Ethan and Claire began spending more time together. Every meeting, every shared coffee, and every whispered conversation deepened the bond they had begun to forge on that first morning. Claire's presence slowly lifted the weight of fear from Ethan's shoulders, replacing it with courage and optimism. He began opening up about his divorce, about the moments he had struggled with loneliness, and about the dreams he still carried quietly in his heart. Claire listened, not with pity, but with understanding, a profound empathy that left him feeling less alone than he had in years. One afternoon, while they sat in the sunlit park watching Sophie chase after pigeons, Ethan realized he hadn't felt this full, this alive, in a very long time. Claire's hand found his again, and for the first time, he didn't hesitate to hold it tightly, letting her presence anchor him. You know, she said softly, you don't have to be perfect to be loved, you just have to be you. Those words lingered in Ethan's mind, long after the laughter faded and the sun dipped toward the horizon. They were simple words, yet they held a truth he had almost forgotten, that life, no matter how fragile or imperfect, was meant to be shared. As the weeks passed, Ethan began noticing small, miraculous changes in himself. He laughed more freely with Sophie, took risks he had once avoided, and allowed himself to imagine a future that included love again. The first morning he met Claire, the whisper at the door had been a quiet invitation, but now it felt like a turning point. A subtle shift in the course of his life that had brought warmth, hope, and courage into a space that had long been shadowed by fear. And on a quiet Sunday morning, as Ethan opened the door to let Claire in once more, he felt no fear. Only the gentle thrill of possibility, the kind of hope that whispers softly but changes everything. The moment she stepped inside, smiling and confident in her own world, Ethan realized that life had a way of surprising us in the most beautiful, unexpected ways. If this story touched your heart, if you felt the hope, the courage, or the warmth of connection, please engage with this video. Like, comment, share, and subscribe. Every click is a reminder that kindness, second chances, and love can change a life. Before we close, let's take a moment to remember that love doesn't always arrive in grand gestures. Sometimes it comes in whispers, in gentle touches, and in the courage to open a door to both someone else's world and your own. Because in Ethan's quiet, sunlit home, a single dad had discovered that even after heartbreak, life still held the power to surprise, to heal, and to bring hearts together in ways words alone could never capture.